Joining us live from Sydney now is the Deputy Opposition Leader Sussan Ley. Sussan, good morning to you. Good to have you with us. So how bad is Julian Leeser's defection from the no case to the yes case? How bad is that for the Liberal case?
Well, good morning, Pete, and I wouldn't agree with your description there at all. Julian, as he said yesterday, is still a proud member of the Liberal Party, and it's just not the Liberal way to make somebody fight for something they don't believe in, that's against their principles. That's what we saw yesterday. It's what makes me proud to be in the party that I've been in for such a very long time, because we know that on the other side of politics, it's completely different. If you don't agree with the party line, you're out the door. So Julian's a dear friend of mine, close colleague, and I think will be a future minister in a Liberal government. And yesterday, because of his long involvement with The Voice, I can remember talking to him about constitutional recognition of Indigenous Australians almost 10 years ago. And he's very close to this, and it's important that on this occasion he stands by those principles, and I applaud his moral courage for doing so.
So did you know he was going to do that?
The decisions were his alone, and I found out about it early yesterday morning, as did most of my colleagues. But as I said, I applaud his moral courage and his decision to do what he felt was right. And I know that, as he said yesterday, he spoke closely and carefully with many of us to explain his views over a long period of time. So to me, while I was sad to see him go, I wasn't altogether surprised.
So if that's only happened a few hours before his press conference, that's taken you by surprise then? You weren't expecting it?
As I said, I know where Julian sits on these issues. I know the conviction he has about developing a model for Indigenous recognition in the Constitution, and this was simply the follow-through, if you like, on that strong and passionate position that he's held over many years. But to characterise it as something going wrong is completely incorrect in my view. In fact, it demonstrates what we have always had as a strength in the Liberal Party, Pete, which is that people can take a different point of view, and that's understood, accepted, and it's perfectly fine. So Julian has stepped away, but he's still in the Liberal Party. He's still one of us.
How do you sell your case, though, with the party split, with even some current and former coalition members now campaigning against you?
Well, again, that's your description.
But it's true.
I will, and I know Peter Dutton will. Well, it's your description, and
but
the word
it's a true
split
description.
does
That's
not
what's
apply
happening.
to what I saw. Well, no. With respect, Pete, as Deputy Leader, I know the details of a lot of conversations between colleagues, our party room, our shadow minister, and the position that Peter Dutton and I have taken on The Voice is overwhelmingly the position of our party room, which is exactly what we should be as leaders of that party. So as we go out and explain and listen and absolutely back in every single Australian who wants the detail that they're not getting in what is a very divisive and disrespectful approach by this Prime Minister. Australians are listening. They're listening to all sides of the argument. They're listening to everybody's points of view. We say yes to Indigenous recognition in the Constitution, yes to local and regional voices. By the way, a huge yes to that from me, because I've seen the effectiveness of local voices on the ground when it comes to Indigenous cultural heritage protection. Yes to Australians having their say, but no to Anthony Albanese's divisive model.
Can The Voice still get bipartisan support?
Well, we've undertaken the discussions in good faith up until now, and obviously work will be done over the next 6 weeks. But it's clear to me that the Prime Minister has made up his mind, that he's decided that it is his way or the highway, that he has not listened, that he has not answered questions. Remember, Pete, I've talked on your program about the 15 questions that Peter Dutton wrote to the Prime Minister. They haven't been answered. People may have tuned into Question Time or they may not, but if they did, they would have seen a lot of really straightforward demanding, asking for information, questions from us that were just waved away and rudely and arrogantly dismissed by the Prime Minister. So clearly he's not going into this in good faith because he doesn't seem to me to want to bring Australians with him.
Who do you want to replace?
We're doing it. This is what it looks like.
Who do you want to replace Julian?
The discussions about what happens within the shadow cabinet, obviously, the announcements will be made in due course.
Jacinta Price?
I'm not naming names on your program. I work constructively with all my colleagues and they all have something to add and to contribute, and they form part of what I want to be, something we take to the Australian people as we go into the next election that reflects all of our aspirations and our values, and ask the Australian people for their faith and their trust.
Jacinta fits the bill though, does she not?
I'm not going to comment on individuals, Pete. That just isn't what I would do. And if I was having any conversations, they wouldn't be over the airwaves. As I said, I respect and value every single one of my colleagues.
Yeah, you hurt my feelings, Sussan Ley.
Oh, I don't think I did. But if I did, Pete, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I'm just kidding. Hey, 20 seconds. You're about to hit a blitz across, 16 electorates?
That's right. 16 electorates in 16 days as we lead into this very important budget. The effect for every household on the broken promises of Anthony Albanese, I believe, will be front and centre of the discussions that I'm having. There's no start date to cheaper power prices. There's no start date to cheaper mortgages. But there is a feeling that people have been left behind, and there's no plan for tackling inflation when we wake up to news of a deteriorating economic environment, both nationally and internationally. So it's so important that the government gets this budget right. And I will be out there making our case that while we lost the last election, we want to present a very strong alternative that reflects the views and aspirations of everyday Australians.